Neighborhood Kids by DimensionBucket. I had gone up to the attic to find a sweater. The winter weather had grown worse in the past few days, and I needed it so I could walk the dog without getting frostbite. The dust covered every surface of the room, and the smell was giving me a headache. I paused a moment to scan for any boxes labeled clothing. My scan was fruitless, so I decided to pick a random box and go from there. Starting with the one nearest the door, I kneeled over and felt a cold draft that gave me goosebumps. I peeled the weak masking tape from the cardboard and neatly opened the box. A rush of joy overcame me as I saw what lay inside. Contained inside wasn't a sweater, but rather a memento from recent times. I smiled at the thought of what it meant. I knew it would be important for later. The yelling of the neighborhood children suddenly interrupted my joy. It infuriated me. I stood up and walked to the attic window. I opened the hatch and screamed at them to shut the hell up and go home. I heard small footsteps in the snow. Then all was quiet. The cold air sharpened my senses, reminding me of the task at hand, and I continued to open more boxes. I went through about 4 until I found what I wanted. My comfortable orange jacket. It was insulated heavily, which made it bulky, but kept me warm. Putting on the jacket, I called for the dog. After a few seconds, he walked into the room with a wagging tail. I put the leash on him and we walked outside. The snow made it difficult to walk, but I finally managed to find a bush. I waited for my dog to do his business. I watched him for a few moments and then looked at the surrounding area. Most of the terrain was covered by snow. It made the world seem bright and clean. I noticed the neighborhood kids again. They were throwing snowballs at each other and shouting profanity. Their obnoxiousness enraged me, and then I yelled again, although this time my yelling wasn't effective. They paused for a few seconds, but soon resumed their boisterous behavior. Their act of ignorance only served to anger me further. I swore, threw my hat at them, and shook my fist, but in the end, I decided to let it go, despite my strong feelings. I realized that I had dropped the leash, and the dog wasn't nowhere to be seen. I was concerned about my pet, but that was dwarfed by the anger at the children for what they'd made me do. I was able to find the dog's paw tracks, which led me to the front door of the house where he was happily waiting for me. I went inside with him to go prepare hot chocolate. While I was getting ready, I thought things over. I then realized that, in my foggy state of mind, I had forgotten to take my jacket off. I pulled it off, and then I heard a loud clatter come from behind me. I turned around and saw that a knife had fallen to the floor. I had lost that knife months ago. Somehow, it had ended up in my jacket pocket. I set the knife in its place on the rack. I remembered I still had to mail the note. I got the box from upstairs and set it down on the living room floor. I retrieved a piece of paper and a pencil from the office. I immediately got to work writing it. Dear Mr. Hodgkins, I have decided to reward you for being so patient. I know you've been worried about your wife lately, and I don't want to leave you hanging. So I have enclosed her head. I will send the rest of it later this week. Until next time, keep an eye on your children. Signed, a concerned neighbor. I placed the letter inside the box and taped it back up. I put my jacket on and prepared to carry the package out to the mailbox. I made sure to grab a knife from the rack beforehand, so I could take care of the neighborhood kids later. Alright, well, that was Neighborhood Kids by a good friend of mine, DimensionBucket. I'll try not to be biased on this review since I do know DimensionBucket, but I have to say I was rather impressed with this pasta. Okay, my first review, I did like a 1 to 10 type deal on a couple different categories, but I think I'm just gonna stick with reviewing it without rating it. I will start off with originality, and I'm gonna just go ahead and mix originality and creativity into one category. For originality and creativity, I thought DimensionBucket did a great job on this. It's nothing like any of the creepypastas I've heard of recently, and at all really. And I thought that the twist at the end was pretty good, and I really didn't see it coming myself. And the name of the creepypasta is creepy in itself. When I heard Neighborhood Kids, I knew that it was going to be a good one. And you start off thinking that maybe somebody's going to come in and kill this guy, or the kids are going to come in and kill him, or something like that, and he kind of flips the script on us, and after a while you realize, oh, okay, this guy is actually a killer himself, and he's really calm about it, and that just makes him seem all the more psychotic. Definitely original because it's not a creepypasta monster per se. It's a murderer, yet it's like the calm neighbor that kind of keeps to himself every now and then, shakes his fist at the loud kids and tells them to shut up. But not somebody that you would necessarily think would cut somebody's wife's head off and stick it in a box and mail it to him with a letter. And the fact that he did cut her head off and mail it to him with a letter saying that he had done so, I thought was pretty creative, and I liked that aspect of it. The length of it I thought was pretty good. Honestly, this was good enough to where I think that maybe you could almost do a few chapters of this guy's murders, or his, the things that he goes through, and just kind of have it be the same style where it's like, oh, he's kind of calm, yet he gets kind of pissed off, and then towards the end of it, it goes to explain basically that he had murdered somebody and was mailing them a letter and a piece of a body part or something. Not mailing the person he murdered, but mailing their family, obviously. And like he said, he was going to go out and take care of the neighborhood kids later. You could almost do a sequel to this and have it be about that. Although, now that you know that he's a murderer, it wouldn't exactly have the same shock ending effect. But I thought that was pretty good. And honestly, overall, I'm not doing 1 to 10s. If I was, I'd give it a pretty high rating. I think this is a pretty awesome creepypasta, and not because I know DimensionBucket. Even if I had no clue who he was, I would still think this is pretty awesome. It's got everything you want in a creepypasta. It's got murder and gore. It's got a twist ending. It's got, kind of normal life. Makes you feel kind of normal in the beginning, and then gradually you realize, oh wait, I'm actually reading a story by a serial killer, and that I think is pretty cool. It's the fact that he does this thing where he mails them letters is, once again, it's pretty creative that he does this, and it makes him have his own little thing, and I like that. So, like I said, I think you could even make sequels to this and have kind of like they have Jeff the Killer out there, and there's multiple Jeff the Killer stories. I think you could have multiple stories about this guy. You'd have to give him a name and whatnot, and, I think he could be a pretty cool quote-unquote pasta monster himself. And, like I said, overall, I thought this was a pretty cool creepypasta, and I thought DimensionBucket did a good job on it. So you all let me know what you think. You guys think it was good? You guys think it was bad? You guys think it was awful? You think it was the greatest story you've ever heard? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this, then watch my other videos. And if you like them, then subscribe. Click like if you like it. If you don't, then go watch something else. It's YouTube. There's a million videos out there, so why are you even still listening to this? Well, this has been Spooks WV with another episode of Spooks Reviews Creepypastas. And until next time, have a spooky night.